So today's webcast, guys, is about how do we find work? How do we find work that could be meaningful for our cash flow and our homes if the season were to start in September? And how do we find work if in fact there is no season and that we might be looking at next spring before we get a professional sports paycheck coming into our pockets? Cissy's going to be speaking towards the Canadian market. Moton, who's based out of Arlington, Texas, is going to help us understand what's going on in the US market. And Moton, maybe I can lob the first question towards you. What are you seeing in terms of job availability and opportunities down south of the 45th?
Yeah, it's tough right now. A lot of businesses are closed. A lot of businesses are struggling to pay the folks that they are due to decreased foot traffic and income. So you make sure you're looking at industries that are hiring right now, that are being active. We talked about before, construction might be a good option. Things that you can do remotely. I mean, we're in 2020. There's tons of ways to make money online and utilize some of your skill sets in that way, whether it be e-coaching, e-training, one-on-one sessions like that. So it's very difficult, but there are some opportunities out there for guys that are looking.
Fair enough. And I was negligent. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Moton is currently employed by Lockheed Martin in Texas. And your role there is you're an HR specialist?
Yeah, HR business partner. So I'm a HR generalist and kind of touch all aspects of HR for my client groups.
Okay. And Cissy, just from a Canadian perspective, what are you seeing in the job market over the last couple of months?
I would say it's pretty similar to what Moton just said. I would say in the early part of March or mid-March to April, there was a lot of layoffs across the board, companies cutting back with just the closures that happened so suddenly. I would say in the last few weeks, especially in BC and other parts of Canada, we're seeing this gradual reopening, the slow reopening, and we've certainly seen it with our clients and the companies we deal with, slowly getting back to what they call the new normal, right? Like employees are coming back to work, restaurants are opening again, the hairdressers are coming back, some of the gyms are starting to open. So through that whole period, I think we saw this dip in certain industries and certainly a peak in other industries like delivery drivers and warehouse people. Like that was booming. IT workers, getting everybody set up to work from home. So I think across the board, we saw some drop, certainly. And then in certain pockets and certain industries, I think those were certainly growing.
Fair enough then. And I hear you about the gym. I went to the Trevor Linden gym the other day and thought I'd just hop in. But I wasn't allowed to. I had to go online and make an appointment to be scheduled in. So even when they're opening, it's a little bit different. Maybe what we can ask about is, let's just say for a moment, there's going to be a season September 1st. We're going to play September to December. We're going to have some training camps in August. So we've got June and July. I'm a player. I'd love to have some cash coming in during those 2 months to help me meet my obligations and just to keep the wolf away from the door. Moton, and then Cissy, I'll put back. Where would you suggest guys start looking to get that sort of 2-month kind of cash infusion? Are there any industries that you would suggest they look at?
Yeah, I would say for me, being a former player, we have a lot of connections. Use your network. Reach out to those folks that are business owners or that may possibly have opportunities or know somebody who knows somebody. That networking is paramount and unmatched when it comes to some of those short time windows when you're looking for income. I'd find an industry that's going to benefit you in the future. We were all kind of discussing, and Cissy made a great point that you can't just find anything to find anything. So find something that's going to build up your resume that you want to do, but we'll definitely reach out to your network and try and find somebody that can help out.
Okay. And Cissy, in addition to what Moton's saying, are there some industries that you might be seeing in Canada that if I was a player, when I'm in Edmonton, I'm in Calgary or Winnipeg or Ontario or even BC, which is, probably the most open province at the moment. Any areas where you say, this is not a bad time to look for that short-term employment opportunity?
Well, I would say probably in the essential services areas, because during this whole lockdown, shutdown, COVID time period, certain industries continued operating, whether it was in healthcare or some manufacturing or security services, construction continued, public safety. So there are certainly industries that continued operating and are growing. And I've talked to some companies where like they're warehouse people. Like that's a good potential short-term get in, get out, your food delivery services, your, delivery companies that have to deliver packages and stuff to customers. They've been growing and growing over the last few months. But I would say, to just echo Moton's point about networking, that's probably where you're going to find the work quickest, is talking to people who know people who are looking. I think hands down, that's probably going to be the easiest and fastest way to get a job.
Fair enough. And just as we load up the next question, just for those of you who've joined us, there's a chat box on the right-hand side. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask Cissy or ask Moton, please feel free to put them in, and we'll get to those as we go through on this. So when we're thinking about that seasonal kind of work, sometimes there's a mind shift set, Moton, and I'm a professional athlete. Now I might be doing something that I did not think I would have to do. And I think that happens to most people in their careers. Can you just sort of comment on what would be the most productive mindset to go into or to have as you approach trying to get work for a couple of months?
Yeah, definitely. Just make sure you're keeping your end goal in mind. I know for me, during some of the off seasons, I used to substitute teach. It's not necessarily something I would have seen myself doing, but I understood that it was a way for me to A, give back, B, get a source of income that was flexible with my training and everything like that. And then just be focused. You're there for a goal. If it's not, with any job, if it's not the one that you want, obviously you give great effort, but you get the best you can out of it. And use the skill set, the connections, again, the networking that you build there, and use it to feed into whatever else it is you want to do. And then keep your end goal in mind as far as a career goes. And then parse out those pieces of things that you're learning and utilizing to use towards that.
Fair enough. Cissy, can you break down for us? I know we've said, work your network, the people that you know here. Some people have never had to do that. Mm-hmm. And so, if you were to tell me specific instructions on how to work my network, what specific things would you have me do? I mean, would you have me write down names of people that I know, and what would be some of the steps you'd take me through so that I had something I could execute?
Yeah, I would certainly consider writing down the names of people who are connected, and people who can vouch for you, people who are willing to help you, your mentors, your coaches, your people that are familiar with your work ethic, your attitude, what you're capable of, what skill sets you have, who know people and know business owners and know companies and know people that are potentially going to be hiring. If the focus is let's go find a job, talking to somebody that has no connections is not going to help. So I think it's certainly going through your contact list, or in the old days, your Rolodex. Yeah. Not to date myself, but going through those resources, see who do I know and who's well connected, and are there agents, are there PR people, are there communications people, are there coaches, are there mentors in your lives who are well connected? And then I think it's picking up the phone.
You took me there.
I find, and as we advise employers, so we don't necessarily advise job seekers on a regular basis, but from the employer perspective, the one hiring, people don't phone anymore. And so when the phone rings, as long as it's not like some number from, some foreign country, you will actually pick up, because it's rare. And we're all a little bit, text and email worn out. I think sometimes it's picking up the phone and having the conversation and explaining your story, and that I'm looking for work and this is what's going on in my world right now. I think there's great value in that, and it's a lost art.
It is. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to contact one of Canada's largest airlines. And so I found the number for the VP of the largest airline. So I picked up, I dialed in my phone, and then 4 seconds later, I was talking to the VP of HR for Canada's largest airline, who just laid off 5,000 people. Yeah. In regular business, that would never happen. And also, I think by the time you actually make the call, sometimes you shorten the hiring process. If you've got 2 months now to get hired, and now you're talking, you can go back and forth and move that along to conclusion or dismissal a lot faster here. How would you feel, Moton, if someone was to contact you via phone, where that's not normal process? How would you respond to that as an HR person?
Like Cissy said, I mean, there's nothing like a human connection.
Mm-hmm.
It would separate you from others that just send the email. The one thing as an HR professional that frustrates me is when I get a resume with the cover letter, well-written cover letter, but it's for a role that is not the one that you applied to, and the previous company's name is in it, and it's a stock one, and you're just reusing it. Same thing with the resumes. I think if you can build that connection, and one thing I wanted to piggyback off what Cissy said was, when you're networking and you're reaching out to those folks, make it genuine. I feel like we have such a great network of people to tap into, whether it be from college,
Mm-hmm.
your professors, your old coaches, your boosters, all these folks that we meet. Be original, be authentic. Definitely write down stuff, because you meet different people. Write down who they are, what organization they work for, and the time that you met them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can reach back to that, because there's going to come a time that you're going to need to think about that person. You won't have any memory or connection to that. So, but yeah, always be genuine, and picking up the phone can really make the difference.
I would also say asking for a warm introduction is
Mm-hmm.
also going to get through the door faster, because you can imagine, and try to put yourself on the side of the recruiter or the employer. If they get an inbox and they posted a job overnight, you could get 500 applications. So your email asking to connect is going to get lost amongst 200, 300, 400 other emails that might come in at the same time. But if you talk to your network, and then you ask your network, the person, maybe it's your church pastor or it is your college professor, and ask them if they can introduce you to that one person that owns this business or is a hiring manager, and they're someone who supports you and champions you and is willing to help. And most people, just as an aside, most people are willing to help and want to help. Then it gets you through the clutter of those 500 emails. I think it's a direct connection, and then you can have a conversation and set yourself apart from those names on paper. You're actually a real live person that they can connect with.
I always think of the picture of a whole bowl of Cheerios there, and everyone is the same. And what you're trying to do is, what I'm hearing from both of you, is use every advantage you can to appear positively different. Whether you're more proactive, you're more engaged, you're hungrier for it. I don't think any of those things would hurt you, would they, Moton?
No, not at all. Proactivity is one of the most powerful things, I think, in my personal career and background. Every time I've been proactive, whether it's reaching out to someone or trying to connect or do something ahead of when it's due, or just being mindful of what could happen, it's always benefited me. It's never hurt me to be proactive about anything.
I would caution, I would say proactive, absolutely, but aggressive and annoying, don't do that. Because I'm sure you've experienced, Moton, where somebody's like, they fax you and then, they email and then they text and then they text again and then they call and they leave a message. And after a while, you've highlighted, red starred that person, but for the wrong reason.
Yeah, fair enough.
One thing I think everybody on the call, for the guys, we always have, like, being a professional athlete or college athlete, you get contacted more times by other guys trying to get in the league than probably you ever would have thought. And there are those folks that are too aggressive to the point where they blow up your phone so much you don't even want to look at it. And so I completely agree. Do not be overly proactive.
So let's drill this down to practicality, like we did with the networking option, folks. What would constitute polite persistence, proactivity, and when do you cross over into being just a pain in the butt? What would you suggest in terms of number of times you contact and how you contact them? And I expect you might have different opinions on that, but I'd love to hear them.
So what I like to do is I always ask the question, like, how often is too often to be contacted? Or I make it a point to say, hey, I'll probably reach back out, but just let me know if I'm bugging you too much, because it's a fine line between, I've had guys reach out to me and they want to get help, but I feel like I'm putting in more effort to help them than they're giving. But at the same time, you don't want to go over that line and it's just, annoying. So I always err on the side of caution and kind of ask the question, like, hey, is it fine if I contact you so often to check in, or if I can reach out to you in a week or so to follow up?
Fair enough.
And I would
See,
say like once or twice, right? If you reach out, if you make a phone call and you reach out to that potential manager, potential business owner, explain your situation and who introduced you and whatnot. And if they and give them your information. The other thing I would say is a lot of times that preface doesn't happen. Like phone etiquette is a lot of times missing. So we'll get phone calls from somebody saying, "Hi, it's Jim calling. Can you give me a call back? Here's my number." Which likely I'm not going to call Jim back, even though, but if you said, "Hi, it's Jim calling. Scott Armstrong recommended that I contact you. He said that you'd be a great person for me to talk to for XYZ reason. Would you mind giving me a call at your earliest convenience or when you have some time available? I'll need 10 minutes of your time. Leave your number." And you can even preface in that, if I don't hear from you, I'll give you a call a week from now. And then call them a week from now. And that might be a bit like about all you want to do. Like I wouldn't say keep calling and calling and calling. And at some point I will say, you're obviously really busy. I'll leave it up to you to give me a call when you have a moment.
so it sounds like, Cissy, not being a football player, you're still developing a playbook here that when you're applying for work, you should be using a diary of who you contacted and when, just to make sure that you're at the right place at the right time. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. Like you need to keep a record, especially like if you're job searching. There've been a number of times where we'll call up a potential job, applicant, and we'll say on behalf of a client, "Hey, I'm calling from ABC company. You applied for a job with us," and the reaction is, "Oh, I did. Oh, and remind me, which job was that again?"
Yeah.
And I don't remember doing that. That doesn't put you in a good light, right? But if you had your log or your list of companies that you applied to and the position and the date, and I think that's very, very helpful. If you get that phone call or that email, if somebody picks up the phone and calls you back, you have a reference point and you don't sound like, as Moton says, they were one of 100 jobs that you sent your resume out to. Because as an employer, you also want to feel special.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to feel like you're one of 100.
No, I was interviewing for a client this morning, and we had an 11 o'clock Zoom meeting, and the candidate didn't show up till 11:10. And thank you, Cissy. If you look at Cissy's face, you just know that you've been flushed, unless you've got a really bona fide reason as to why you kept me waiting. So keeping that structured thing. Before we came on air, Moton, you made a really interesting point. I just wanted to get back to it. Is about Jason and I see this an awful lot when we help the guys with their resumes. And they're trying to translate the skills that they have as a professional athlete to valuable skills by the employer. So maybe we could do it this way, Moton, if you could help, identify some of the skills that you would see and talk to it. And then Cissy, if you want to add something to that about how that might resonate if you were to see that in an applicant's file.
Yeah, definitely. I think that there was like an 8-month gap after I retired, when I actually found I got in at the company I'm in with now, and I found doing interviews and applying places that folks that did not necessarily have a sports background or appreciation for it could not correlate the things that I've done on the field and off the field as applicable in business. So I had to look at some of the things that I've done, and I always recommend to guys, all the young guys I've talked to do more than just play. Don't just go to the locker room and go home. Take advantage of all these opportunities we have to do things. So, a lot of the foundations that I was board members on, or some of even the sponsorships, the coordination, those are business to business transactions, right? Being in the PA, being a representative, being a team captain, those are soft skills that a lot of people in business don't have, that we're very good at it. The unique thing about being a football player is we're a group of individuals from every background, ethnicity, and social range, and we're all thrown on a team together for camp for 6 to 8 months or weeks. I'm sorry. And you have to work together, right? That's a unique skill set that few people have. And on a scale of where there's 11 to 12 people on a field. So you have to work with 12 or 11 people in high stress situations. Not many folks can do that. And that is a huge asset in the business world, to have the composure and be able to do those things. So you have to be really particular and pick out those moments and things that you can translate, put into paper, and always make sure it applies to the role that you're applying to. Most frustrating thing for me is people put on all this information and it has nothing to do with the role we're hiring for. 9 times out of 10, people will talk themselves or write themselves out of a job. We want to give you the job. We need to hire people. And then people just will keep going and they'll just knock off points. So just make sure everything you're doing, you're showing yourself and your experience as an asset to the company, and highlight those things that people may not necessarily see and be able to speak to as well.
Fair enough. Cissy, how about you? You know, in terms of perhaps not coming from the sports world and things like that, could you think of some of the skills that Moton was talking about as how they would be relevant or irrelevant for what you're looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the HR world, the language is transferable skill. So we all in our lives have experiences, and whether we talk about this to high school students, right? Who they've never had a job before, but they have transferable skills from how they studied and how they did their team projects and whatever they did in school that can be helpful for an employer. So figuring out what your transferable skills are, whether that is your ability to, work on a team, because that's really, really essential to be able to work as a team, work under pressure, work under deadlines, to follow a routine, to follow instructions, to, having rigor in your, what you eat and how you practice, and, keeping to a schedule. Like all those things, I think, are transferable skills that an employer would be looking for. I think if you were to put yourself in the employer's shoes, that's a really important part of when you're creating your resume and creating your cover letter and going through an interview process, is what might the skills be that employer is looking for, that then I can draw examples from my experience that prove that I have those skills. And I often tell clients, the employer side, this technical skills you can often train, right? Like how to use that new computer program, or how to type, or how to use this, cash register, or whatever it is. Those are things that are trainable. But what you can't train, or is very difficult to train, is attitude and reliability and consistency and positivity and flexibility and adaptability. Those are things that I think a lot of employers are looking for, and employees need to be able to prove that they have those skills. And I would think in all of your experiences and, playing football or going through school or just life experience, you have the ability and you have those skills that you're the one that needs to sell those skills to the employer.
And that's when we, for those who've been with the Academy for a while, when we approached a TD Bank on both sides of the border to provide internships for players, they got their C-suite team together to put together an internship recruitment program just for CFL players, because the skill they wanted was everything that you said, Moton, and you said, Cissy, but they wanted somebody who had that competitive nature. They had to win. And that's something that's often wanted, particularly in anything that has to do with the marketing or sales, that kind of stuff. And in this case, financial planning, Freedom 55 is looking for CFL players because they have that type of thing. And in the last 3 years that we've had the Academy, I could tell you the resumes that Jason and I have seen, we see resumes that say, I played at this university place, I got this award, I played Canadian football, this position, this team, but there's no distillation of that experience to employer relevant skills. And that's the part that I'm hearing from both of you. I think I'm hearing that from you too, Moton, that we need to make sure that our guys get to that place. Here's what I did, but here's how it's useful to you as an employer.
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely. And I think one thing too that Cissy touched on was, there's tons of studies out there that show us that technical skills are great. You have to know how to do the job right. Being a subject matter expert is amazing, but it's the soft skills that are lacking, the things that they're not teaching in school, the communication, the emotional intelligence, being able to read a room, understand how somebody's feeling without having to ask them, I guess, if you will. And so those are things that we possess because of the nature of us traveling, moving, connecting with individuals that aren't like ourselves. And so that is a huge thing that a lot of companies need, because they can teach you the technical stuff. You need a base skill set, of course, but those soft skills are things that they're not really being able to find right now.
So far in our discussion, we're about 25 minutes in. We've talked about, guys, some market segments that on both sides of the border that are things that you could look at for the next two months for job employment. can we expand the conversation to say what happens now if we're looking for employment for a year? Does that switch the strategy that the guys should be pursuing at this point in time, or are we pretty much doing the same kind of thing? And Cissy or Moton, whoever would like to pick that one up first.
I can pick that. I'll pick that up. I would say the strategy is probably still the same: is work your network, talk to people that you know, look to see what's available out there. I think with more time, you can be more targeted. I go back to, Moton touched on it a little bit, is being clear on what you're looking for. I find it's very difficult when somebody comes and says, I'm willing to do anything, anywhere, anyhow, anytime. What do you have for me? I'll do anything. And that desperation, it becomes very hard if you're on the other side of the table to know where to fit that person in. So if you have, now you're looking for something that you need to do for a year, you certainly want to enjoy doing it. So some more time spent on figuring out what you would enjoy doing for that year and how it fits in with your long-term goal. So you've got your professional playing career, but then what happens thereafter? So it would be ideal if you think about, these are the kinds of things I want to do in the long term post football, and perhaps try to find some of those opportunities and experiences over the next year to at least put you in the right path and to have more of those transferable relevant skills.
Okay. Moton?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think if you're looking at that long-term job, look at the end game, like Cissy said, and make sure it's going to benefit you. It's like school, right? You don't want to take a course that's not going to go towards your degree. So you have to have a plan. And I'd say this for me personally, it was very difficult post football for me to figure out what I wanted to do. I worked on my master's while I was playing, but even after I was done, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Like in sports, I hope you guys can relate to what I'm saying, but it's a direct path, right? You know where you want to get to. It's the playing professionally and doing X, Y, and Z. Whereas in business or in the professional world, there's so many different avenues you can go to. So it's like, okay, well, I like this, I like that too. What do I do? It's not as structured in a clear path. So you have to really soul search, sit down and think what you want to do. From a financial standpoint, you need to see where you want to be, because that will kind of determine what industry or which role you'll be in. If you're used to making a certain amount of money and you want to be there in the next 3 to 5 years, you have to figure out what specific job you want to be in and what role. And so you have to plan your path or career pathing into that position. It's very difficult. I talk to people that being in sports, you'll be around a lot of influential people, powerful people with wealth. Ask people that they're successful, what they did or what they recommend, and pick pieces of it that will benefit you and apply a lot of those things. I'm really big on mentorship. You guys have tons of coaches, but you also need to have people that are in the professional world where you want to get to, or that can coach you through some of these things. So you just have to have a plan. You can't just go through it blindly and expect to be successful.
And I'd say don't be afraid to ask. I think that's a really, really important point, because if you were to ask any single person, especially younger people, what are the careers out there? We can probably list 20, 30 careers, but there are hundreds and thousands of opportunities out there and careers that you don't even know about. So I think if you're not aware, or if you don't know what else might be out there, is ask people who might be doing something that seem really interesting. Hey, like, how'd you get into this? And what do you do every day? And, if you were someone starting out, how do you recommend I get into that particular field? Or like, what kind of skills do you need? People like talking about themselves. And if you come at it from the perspective of, I'm looking for some help, people want to help. So don't be afraid to ask those people that you might come across who might be doing something that looks really interesting, but you don't quite know what it is. Ask them.
Yeah. We did a webcast, I think about 4 months ago, on the top 10 careers up and coming over the next 4 or 5 years, guys. So as you listen to this, you can go to the Academy website and take a peek. Keep in mind it was pre-COVID, and one of the top 2 was being an airline pilot. maybe 5 years from now it might be popular again. But
I'm not sure that's the one.
I don't think that's the one. I don't think that's the one anymore.
Maybe doctor.
Doctor. So let's just as we get close to wrapping this up here, I've been listening to what you've been saying. I'm also a football player, and that's for a lot of guys when I talk to them, that's what they've known themselves and that's what they've seen themselves to be. Is that a fair comment, Moton?
Yeah, I think there's a few times in my life where that sense of identity was a struggle. I don't think enough people talk about this, enough guys talk about this, is that growing up playing as a kid, you always identified as that player, the star, the captain, so on and so forth. The two hardest times for me thinking that I wouldn't be able to play football was when I didn't get drafted coming out of college. And I had to sit out for a year, and folks were asking me every 5 minutes, why aren't you here? Why aren't you there? That was very, very tough. And then whenever I was making that decision to retire, it was very difficult because anything this difficult, you put your heart in and you're all into it. And it's very hard to say, okay, what will I do? My biggest thing was I had a fear of not being as successful outside of football as I was in football. And that's a scary thing for guys. I mean, you're 20, I retired at 32, 31, 30. I mean, at that age, you don't want the best highlight point in your life to be the years behind you, right? I mean, you have a whole lifetime ahead of you. So I really struggled at some points with that piece of that identity crisis. But I think that's why it's important to prepare yourself and to put all the blocks in place and make all those connections while you have that platform and people actually will listen to you. Because there is the stark reality that once it's over, sometimes you may not be able to reach the people you once reached. And so take advantage of it while you have it, do all the things you want to do, and use your platform for the things that are important for you while you can.
So while you're doing that, when we get the players, what I'm finding is because it has been so football focused, when all of a sudden we're asking, what is it you want to do? There's a lot of players who go, I have no idea. And so my concern is that if we say, hey, there's these hundreds and thousands of opportunities over there, it's sort of like information overload washing out them, it sort of makes them lost at sea. And so what I wanted to do out of this webcast, if we're focused on just this next year, and we're getting the idea that we should be building on a career, Cissy and Moton, I certainly get that. What would be, maybe just between the three of us, we can rattle off some industries that they could take a look at that might serve as that stopgap measure. And if it also helps build towards their career, great. But we do have a variety of folks here, some who are going to need cash, some who will have the luxury of having some cash and would like to build for a career, and others who simply want to build career. So we have probably three buckets of audiences listening to us here. So what would be some industries now that you would suggest? And I know when I take a look online, I see, Amazon, anybody who's doing anything online is looking for warehouse help. No, Cissy, I'm not recommending them as an employer. It's all good. We have a big Amazon warehouse just down the road here. I know what you're talking about. But what
I've
industries?
said nothing.
I know, but your face said everything. What are we industries are we looking at?
I think IT, information technology, anything to do with in that field is going to be certainly, they need people now, they need people in the future. There's training all over the place for people to learn how to, design a website, be a graphic designer, be an animator, programmer, software developer. And there's entry-level positions and senior-level positions.
Just by the way, my son is an animator. He's all of 21 and he's making $55,000 a year. First, you're out. So, yes, and it was a very short program, so you could do that. Moton, how about an industry for you? What would you suggest?
I would echo IT for sure, especially cybersecurity. Data analysts are going to be huge for every industry going forward. Like we touched on before, or even the construction piece, that's something that you could get into quicker than not, or even the Amazon supply chain stuff, or, with construction, people don't often think there's project management involved with that, right? So that's a transferable thing that you could use for something else, or, supply chain management with the Amazon and all the facilities things. And there's tons of industries like Cissy said, with the essentials. I would attack those first because we know they're thriving and they're hiring right now.
Yeah, so like personal protection equipment called PPE. Every company is going overboard trying to follow themselves to get people on board for the next little while.
Your health and safety administration people, health and safety workers, the PPE people, the ones explaining your safety protocols. I think that doesn't necessarily require a tremendous amount of education in that field. It's certainly you need to have knowledge in that, but every company right now is looking for someone to help them create their safety plan and then administer it and manage it and follow it through and complete their checklists and participate in a review. And
so I'm now one of one of your folks who's listening to this, and you folks are counseling me, Moton and Cissy, are counseling me on how I should be applying for a job. I'm one of these folks who needs to get some cash over the next 12 months. Top tips from a resume perspective, an interview perspective, things that we may have not covered so far. Just let us have it. Just fire them at us, because they can rewind this and listen to it over and over again.
Make it aggressive. I'm very nitpicky. Again, you use the job description as your guide. Focus, if you have the skill set and it's on the job description, especially in the basic qualifications, ensure that it's on your resume. Obviously, do not lie if you don't have it. But if you have it, make sure it's in there and put it in a way that's applicable to the role. Again, if you're going to use a cover letter, make sure it's tailored to that job. Make sure it's genuine. Make sure it's not generic. Stay away from super generic phrases in your professional summary. Like, don't Google what to put on there or copy and paste. Do not use the same resume for every job. That bothers me. I'm not going to lie.
You can see that. On the other side of the table, you can see when this has just been photocopied or when it's just a cut and paste. You can feel it.
And take time with your resume. I guess your resume formatting. Like, there's nothing more off-putting than just seeing a bunch of words typed on a page
with spelling mistakes.
Applying for it. Yeah, like if you, and I know it's difficult. If you need help, get help with it. But that is your one opportunity to get a phone call. So that's all they have to judge you off of. And if it's not perfect and it's not professional, you don't have a chance.
Very cool.
On the resume side, I would say you absolutely want to put not just a list of things you've done, but accomplishments and how those are relevant to the employer. That is one piece of advice I give to anybody that asks, is include your measurable achievements. So if it's like one that might not be fully relevant to you guys, but if you've managed a group of people, rather than saying I've managed a team, it's I manage 15 people on a team. Like, those very defined metrics allows an employer to see scope and breadth of experience.
And we do have defensive captains and team captains that have had those experiences, on the field. So let's say we get through the paper piece. We've got the resume, the cover letter, and it's next step. We're getting to the interview process here. We can do well on the paper, and then all of a sudden, Moton and Cissy, there I am in front of you. What do you want to see and what do you not want to see?
I want to see confidence but not arrogance in an interview.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult for people to eloquently put out their best in an interview. Either they're shy and they don't want to brag about the things that they've done, or they're overbearing and it's like, okay, I don't know if I want to work with you. So it's measuring that and then prepare for it. You can absolutely tell when somebody's prepared for an interview versus when they haven't. You don't want a lot of ums like I just did. You don't want a lot of awkward pauses. Think about experiences that you've had. Go over them, practice, and then go into the meeting confident in what you have, and then make sure you answer the question. I asked a question about, hey, what's the time that you did X, Y, and Z, and what was the result? And you tell me about the sky's blue. Your favorite thing is walking on the beach, and you didn't answer anything that I said. That's not a good look, and it will not help you.
I would say one of the most important things, and anybody in HR will say this to you, is getting very specific examples of past experience is what an HR person is looking for. So when I ask you a question like, give me an example when you had a conflict with someone you worked with, I want a specific example of a time when you had a conflict with someone you worked with. So you can say, you know what, I was part of a team and we had 2 guys on the team, and we disagreed on whatever we were supposed to do. And this is what they said, and this is what I said, and this is how it resolved. That will allow me to get into your shoes and understand your situation. What I don't want to hear in an answer is, oh, it happens all the time. Oh, every day. I did that all the time. That's not good enough. I want to know specific examples. So in your preparation for your interview is come up with 5 really, come up with 5 skills you have that you think are your strengths, and come up with an example of when you've demonstrated that strength. And then in your interview, you at least have 5 examples that you could probably massage and work on and adapt to fit a question that somebody's going to be asking.
So here's some fire ones for you then. Should I research the company I'm interviewing for ahead of time? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Should when someone says, "Tell me about yourself," how long should I speak?
3 to 5, maybe at most.
No more than a minute.
Yeah.
Oh.
See, no, this is good. We want different perspectives on this. Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
Because think about it. If you were to time yourself just talking about yourself, how long do you want to hear that? So, because when you're asked the question, how tell me about yourself, just to ask a friend to tell them about yourself and record them and time it. I bet you're going to lose interest after about 45 seconds, 30 seconds, 45, maybe a minute. And so if you're going to talk longer than that, the good stuff has to be in that first minute.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
And
That's right.
The average attention span of a human being, do you guys know what it is now?
Probably a lot
7
lower now than it
seconds.
was.
It's 8 seconts. A goldfish has an attention span of 9 seconds. So we have to get the good stuff out there.
That's a
Okay.
TikTok and then you're swiping.
That's about it, isn't it, Moton?
That's what it is.
Tell me a
now,
little
yeah.
bit, visually, what do you want to see in front of you and what do you not want to see in terms of dress, apparel, accessories, that kind of stuff? Is there any things that we should steer away from?
Yeah, just for the job you want. Don't come in too lax. I always say I'll err on the side of overdressing than underdressing. Make sure you smell good. Your hygiene's well kept. I think that's very important. And your body language is just as important as what you're saying in an interview.
Okay, Cissy?
I would advise very similarly. I tell people dress one level above the position that you are applying for.
Okay, fair enough.
So you use that, gauge that in your own words. But if you're applying for a job as a banker, a customer service agent, a teller at a bank, you want to dress one level above what you think that person is. So if it's business casual, maybe come in a blazer and a suit, blazer and a tie,
Yeah. It may be an old question, so I may get dated on this one, Cissy, but you can smile first. Is the dreaded question was tell me about one of your weaknesses and what you're doing about it. Does that still get asked?
Still gets asked, sure.
And so if it still gets asked, what is a good response? Because that's something that a lot of people stumble over.
I am more interested in hearing what you do about your weakness than the actual weakness itself. So when I ask the question, it might be we all have our strengths and we all have our weaknesses. What do you think is one area that you could improve? Or what's an area that you want to work on? And they'll say, I'm a really big perfectionist, right? That's the standard. That's the coached response. I'm a really big perfectionist. I like things just great and just perfect. And I might spend too much time trying to make sure that something is just perfect, right? That's the coached response. I would take that and I would take it a step further and ask, well, if you've recognized that that's a weakness of yours, what have you done about it to correct for it?
Okay, very good.
Because then it's past the coached response.
Part. And you want the authentic response.
What
would you be looking for? Sorry.
I want to know what they've done about it. Like, you've identified a personal area of development. Do you just let that be? And you just say, oh, that's just the way I am? Or what are you going to do about it?
Okay. How about you, Moton? What would you want to hear from a client or a prospective candidate?
I agree that end result or the lesson learned or what you've implemented to change that is the most important piece of that. I would caution, I've been in several interviews where we ask a similar question and folks use an example of something that is either detrimental to the position, character flaw or something. don't use the worst example. Use something that is truthful, but obviously not to the point where they'd be concerned about having you at the facility. So that's a
Totally
big
agree.
key, is picking the right weakness or the right scenario where you could have done better, but really the end result, what you implemented, what you learned. And if you have a quantitative value, if it's like a specific amount of things you've done, what that number is and how you kind of fix the problem.
Okay, final question then is, the interview's all done. Just give me top 2 or 3 things each of you of how can one stand out in an interview so that they remain memorable? They're the 7th interview of your day of 15 of them. What makes people stand out in a positive way? We'll make sure we get the positive way.
I would say professionalism, being genuine, and showing that you have prepared for this moment and that you truly want the job. You're not there just to get a paycheck.
Okay, thanks. Cissy?
I know what you're getting at, in that back in the day it was, send a thank you card and send a thank you follow-up email, and those things are fine. I think some sort of follow-up thereafter would be okay after a period of time has passed, whether that's, a week or, a few days. I think it goes back to the not being overly aggressive, yet being very respectful. And if you don't get the job, asking for some feedback, not in a defensive kind of way, but asking, what could I have done differently? Was there something else I could have done better? Was there somewhere where you thought I didn't have the right skills, and where might I go to get those skills, and using it as a learning opportunity? And if you do get offered the job, which is fantastic, make sure you show up, because the number of times we have had clients say that they'll ask someone to come to an interview, or they've offered somebody a job, it's been accepted, and the person doesn't show up, or they're late, or the whole ghosting thing. I don't know how that came about, but it happens all the time. We get clients calling all the time where we've offered the person the job, they were supposed to start Monday, they just didn't show up. And there's no phone call, there's no excuse, there's nothing. And my first reaction is like, did they get in an accident on the way to work? And no, they just didn't show up. Like, that is not good for your reputation. And you guys being of a higher profile, it will follow you, and people will talk, and that will hurt your reputation quicker than anything else.
Fair enough. Reputation and brand go hand in hand. Go ahead, Moton. Yes.
Sorry, Scott. I just want to say, and it might be different in Canada, but in the U.S., as far as getting the feedback from your interviewers, a lot of people in the HR community in the U.S. do not do that for legal reasons. So if you don't get a response back on the reason why you weren't hired, don't take that any kind of way. It's more so of a policy and protection for the company. So yeah, you may not get it, but asking the question is still good, right? And it reminds people that you actually cared enough, and people remember the impression you leave upon them. So that may open the door for another opportunity. So definitely don't hesitate in asking, but you may not.
Fair enough. I'm thinking about this as I'm saying it. We may have already had our closing remarks, but I just want to wrap this up and give you both an opportunity if there's anything left unsaid that you wanted to impart to the players. And we'll start with you, Moton.
Again, networking, use the tools and the accessibility you have while you're playing to set yourself up for the future. Have a plan, even if it's 1 or 2 plans and you haven't narrowed it down, but have a plan and take steps towards that to get you where you want to be. And just be genuine and kind to people. That served me better than anything else, technically or performance wise. So people will remember that and they'll take care of you. Good people get taken care of.
Cissy?
I would say don't be afraid to ask for help. Help on how to write your resume. Have people take a look at it. Ask for help on how to prepare for an interview. Like, go through a mock interview with somebody and ask for help. And I think the other thing I would say is be genuine. Find your voice amongst all the advice you get. Like, even from us, right? We are one, but we're 2 perspectives or 3 perspectives on how to go about a job search. If you talk to 15 other people, they'll tell you 15 different things. But within all that, find your voice and find out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. And then when you go to that interview, when you apply for that job, be genuine, be yourself, because any interviewer will see right through it when you're trying to pretend to be something that you're not.
Fair enough then. That's great. And just a reminder, guys, that the Academy does help you with resume preparation service and mock interview preparation. So if you're listening to this, even on a recorded basis, just reach out to the Academy and we'll sit down, much like this Zoom situation is here, and go through all your stuff to help make sure that you're lined up.